Hello and welcome. It's time for the program Rethinking Nigeria, a Perspective. I'm Lanre Lasisi. Now, this week at the National Conference was eventful for different reasons. We have a report that looks at what delegates were able to do in what turned out to be a very short week. And as usual, a chat with our regular guest is also part of our package for you. Let's start with that report I spoke of. The conference continued where it stopped the week before, considering the reports of the 20 committees set up to look into some of the issues confronting the country. The conference commenced with the report of the Committee on Environment. The chairman of the committee gave a summary of the report.
The committee examined the root causes of the lax attention to protection of environmental resources and considers that should that continue, we may end up with an environment that truncates the ability of nature to maintain its essential cycles and sustain life and livelihoods in Nigeria.
After that, delegates commenced consideration of the report.
The recommendation for the Environmental Restoration Agency is very crucial because a whole lot of our environment have been so damaged that the Nigerian environment is almost comatose.
So I'm pleading with this body. Don't think of your area alone. Don't think of what you get. We need compensation. We need the environmental development, cleaning of our areas. Otherwise, we will be extinct while you are enjoying the oil money.
In the Niger Delta area where oil is being explored, what's happening there is the biggest crime to humanity. You cannot be given wealth to a nation and you are expected to die for it.
A lot of delegates said the committee had done a good work, but went on to propose key amendments.
The amendment is that we delete this recommendation for the setting up a special court on environment. So all those in favor of deleting the recommendation on special court on environment, say aye. Aye. All those against say nay. Nay. The ayes have it. That the Federal Ministry of Environment should be a creation of the Constitution. All those in favor say aye. All those against say nay. Nay. The nays have it.
The next day, the conference moved on to the next report, that of the Committee on Religion. The report got a favorable reception from delegates, but when it came to amendments, it led to a rowdy session.
In favor that the Pilgrims Welfare Board should be retained, say aye. Aye. All those that it should be abolished, say nay. Nay. The noes have it.
So, point of order, Mr. Chairman. No. This decision cannot stand. Point of order, I insist on a division on this.
It is obvious.
No. Our order says we take decisions by consensus. Other all by 70%. When we take a voice vote and nobody objects, that is consensus. When we take a voice vote, which is very close like this one, I insist on division. I ask for division on this issue. There is no consensus. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
We are calling for a division, Mr. Chairman.
There will be division. You have been defeated. Not to accept defeat. Not to accept defeat. No. There won't be any division.
We will vote by ballot on this issue.
But the next day, proceedings at the plenary session had to be adjourned following news of the death of Haja Mairamo, wife of the conference chairman and retired Chief Justice of the Federation, Justice Idris Kutugi. Plenary sessions will resume on Monday, the 2nd of June. Now, some people will describe the week as being short and sharp. With all that happened, I looked forward to my chat with our regular guest, Mr. Atedo Peterside, the president and founder of ANAP Foundation, who is also a delegate at the conference. Here's the chat. Another week of the plenary, and I don't know, is it my own idea, or would you say it appears a pattern for consideration of the report is emerging?
Oh, definitely. I think after the very first report was taken last week, we used a particular formula where delegates put down their names. They were called turn by turn. Then at the end, we sort of proposed motions for all the amendments, put them to the test. Sometimes the ayes had it, the noes had it. And then we finished up having a report endorsed essentially. So that same formula is being used now for the other reports, one by one.
Okay, but there are changes.
Yes, there's some minor changes because, I think last week we mentioned that it was okay for everybody to talk on citizenship, immigration, and other matters because I think those who put down their names were only 40. So this week on religion, I think we had a case where those who put down their names were way over 100. And the result was that, the chairman and the vice chairman called people, one by one. And by the time we got to 5 o'clock, I know it's unfair on those who have not spoken, and I have to be very careful because I had spoken myself. But by around that 5 o'clock, it was clear that all the new speakers were simply repeating what had been said by the earlier speakers. I say it's unfair because it's possible that there was one brilliant speaker who was yet to speak, who had something different. But then the vice chairman, at 5 o'clock, everybody was getting tired, and we have been hearing the same things repeatedly. Now said, okay, he puts it up to the House to decide. Do we want the remaining speakers whose names were down to speak, or do we think we've heard enough and we should now proceed with amendments and sort of trying to endorse the report? So the House, everybody shouted, the ayes had it that we should terminate the debate and proceed with actually trying to adopt amendments one by one. So like I said, it's possible that since it was the wish of the House and it was clear, there was a majority voice vote that we should stop the debate. But like I said, that decision was okay yesterday, but potentially it can be dangerous because if we get to something very controversial like devolution and there are 200 speakers, just because the House gets tired after 150, it's possible that the speaker that has the greatest insight has not spoken yet, and he will have a problem struggling to insist that he must speak. So it worked out yesterday on religion. But it's something that is sort of is dicey, whether you can use that formula all the time.
I would like to find out from you, you're a delegate. The fact that the two segments of the consideration, yes. The first part where people speak to the report, and then the next part where the report...
Where all the proposed amendments are tabled one by one for the House to vote on.
Good. Now, the fact that, because it appears when people speak, when delegates speak, yes. They now make their observations and the recommendations for amendments known.
Yes.
But is it that you can send your amendments?
The way I understand it is
yes.
that you are supposed to, after you finish, when you speak, typically people are speaking, okay, I know some just speak to endorse a report, but most of us are speaking because there's something in the report we don't like, and we are proposing an amendment. Okay. So the correct thing is that I suppose we're arguing the case for the amendment, okay. And then we're finishing up saying, therefore, we're proposing that instead of ABC in the report, it should be XYZ. Okay. Is that motion to replace ABC in the report with XYZ that is put to the whole House to decide upon? Okay.
So in a situation where we now say, okay, it appears enough people have spoken, will that not still mean that the people that haven't spoken, if they have amendments, they can still write in?
I guess so. They can scribble them and drop them in. And even if they've not been doing that, I think I would definitely recommend very strongly to the chairman and vice chairman that those who have not spoken, but if they have actual amendment, they should send them in. And I believe the process allows that, but I'll check.
Oh, okay. Okay, now, another thing, you remember last week when we were speaking, the issue of the role of the deputy chairman and on the committee report that went into a rowdy, almost rowdy session. It appeared he also learned from that. This week he was not almost aligned. Once it came to voting.
Yes, because you see, you cannot debate twice. That was the point some of us were making. You cannot have a debate, a free debate initially. Yeah. Then it's time to put something to the vote. Instead of putting it to the vote, some people start waving their hands again that they want to make additional points. Whatever point they've not made in the previous 8 hours, it's too late for that. It's now voting time. So I was happy that the chairman the chairman and vice chairman tried to railroad the amendments through one by one. Yeah. In effect, when it's time for voting, it's time to put each amendment to the test, whether the main house wants it or not. It's not the time again for some people to begin to wave their hands to make new arguments in favor or against.
Or against. We took some reports this week. One of them, the first, was the report on environment, and I was really surprised at the amount of amendments or recommendations that were proposed by the committee that were not taken.
Well, yes. I mean, I'm not completely surprised, but that report on environment also brought out something. You know, I've been saying repeatedly that it is not true that you have to be a victim of something, a beneficiary, or from a geographical area that suffers something before you can articulate the arguments on a particular issue that concerns that area. And I think the debate on environment, many of us were touched when I think the best speaker, the most brilliant speaker on the environmental issues and concerns in the Niger Delta was not a speaker from the Niger Delta. It was Senator Tilly Giado from Benue State. And hearing Senator Tilly Giado from Benue State speak about the Niger Delta and the damage being done to the environment, what he had observed personally, the facts and figures he reeled out, and his challenge to the rest of the nation to take it seriously, it was moving, touching, it was brilliant, it was done. He had done his homework clearly. And that's the point I was making, that hearing somebody who is, I believe is Steve or something from Benue State, taking up the cause or the something he had observed in a different part of the country and making a brilliant case for some solutions and what should be done. It was a lot more convincing, and I wish that many other people would have the confidence, would learn from that experience, and allow others from a different part of the country who are not directly affected, who are knowledgeable on an issue, to join the debate. And I made the point last time that an articulate Senator Tilly Giado speaking with facts and figures is a lot more convincing than an emotional gentleman or lady from the Niger Delta just throwing out emotions, issuing threats or trying to warn the rest of the nation. That kind of appeal does not ring home in the same manner as the one from Tilly Giado. And that same principle, if it had been applied to the earlier issues like, the grazing, arguments on grazing and what should be done about who should bear the cost of grazing pastures and so on. It allows some of us who are not directly involved in terms of our ethnic group to speak. It might have helped the House to reach a broad agreement on the way forward. Whereas, like I said before, the people waving their hands and insisting that they must speak, and then they get up and start giving you a historical perspective that 200 years ago, the forefathers had the right to do X, Y, Z. Hey, let's be realistic. We're in 2014. You will not convince the whole country based on what happened 200 years ago. Tilly Giado was talking about what is happening now, facts and figures from today. That is a lot more convincing. Yes, we understand the historical context, historical background, but we're also looking at the future. The whole idea of a national conference is we're thinking about what future Nigeria are we looking for? What should we put in place now to ensure that our future is secure? So looking at the past is useful, but looking at the future is probably even more important.